talent versus how you think they're going to go. And at
Well,
what
two different
point?
things.
At what point in the draft does it just become talent, or how you think they're going to go? What's your thoughts
there? Yeah, so like I know when we're doing our top 150, we have a top 150 now. We'll go to 250 by the time draft rolls around. That's just simply lining it up in order of talent. That's based on who we think is going to be the best player in the long run. It doesn't, like I heard you guys talking last week, nothing to do with signability. I heard the same thing, Shooter, you hear. Oh, that guy is not going to be signable. It's like, I don't care. Like if I think the guy's the 40th best player, based on information we're having in the draft, if he goes to college, fine. Like, and I like identifying the high school guys who are good, who want to go into college. And then 3 years later, you're like, oh, we had that guy ranked pretty high. Like, I feel good about that. The mock draft's totally different. Like, there's times in the mock draft, Jonathan Mayo just did a mock draft for us. I'll do one next week where I'll tell you the hardest part of the mock draft, and I don't know if you find this, Shooter, when you guys are doing them, is when a team is going to make a pick. I'm like, that guy shouldn't go there. That's too high. And I don't believe in the player. And like, that's the toughest part looking back as the draft's unfolding, like, oh, I missed that pick, is when you're like narrowing it down to like 2 or 3 guys and you go with the guy you think is the best player.
Yes.
Like, or you think is clearly better than the other 2 guys, but the team likes the player better than you think he is. But no, when you're doing a mock draft, it's 100% who I think the team is going to pick. It's not, like I said, I run into that problem all the time. Like, especially this year, it's going to happen. We're going to get through. I think there's a clear top 10 or 11 picks. I don't know if they'll go in the top 11 because there's signability guys, which is also an issue because you can't see them coming. But I know when we're getting to 12, 13, 14, 15, there's going to be guys I like, and I'm going to be like, I should put it like, I like Carson Bench. I think I'm a little higher on Carson Bench than the industry. I don't think he's necessarily going the first round, but I think he's a borderline. I like Kevin Bizzell at Texas Tech. Like, I could see factoring into like the 25 to 35 range. And I think the industry doesn't quite see him that high. So that you run into those categories where I'll probably project the catcher I don't like as much as Kevin Bizzell going in the first round at like 28 and be thinking, I should go Kevin Bizzell. But that's where I find the talent versus who the team's going to pick. That's the toughest part of it, is after you get rolling. Like, I can't think, and I wouldn't name him if I could, but like, there's not a particular player this year where I'm like, oh man, I'm just out on that guy. I don't like him. Everybody thinks he's a first round pick. But like, it pains me sometimes. It's like, man, that guy shouldn't go 12.
Yeah.
Like, that's too high. But if you keep hearing information, it's like, okay, I guess I'll put him 12.
And how much of that is, hey, this team takes these types of guys. They will never take this one. This Connor Griffin's sitting there at 17, but I don't even know who's at 17, but like, they're not going to take him. What? Will that come up too?
A little bit. I actually think that's the most overblown part of mock drafting. Is and look, I know, and I haven't done my first full mock of the year. I'll do one next week. And when you do your first one, and like, it's gonna be 2 months in advance, there's not a lot of concrete information, especially after you get past the first 5 or 6 guys. But like, I just never buy like, oh, Team X has drafted this type of player 3 times in the last 4 years, so they're going to do it again. Like, the draft doesn't work that way. Like, yes, there are teams that aren't going to take a high school player probably in the first round, or a high school pitcher in the first round. But you can't just say, oh, this team, like, off the top of my head, I don't know how many years it's been since the Orioles have taken a pitcher in the first round. Might be
Rodriguez, 2018.
Yeah.
But it was the prior regime. That was not.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So like, I don't buy into the fact like, oh, Mike Elias and company have never drafted a pitcher, because when Mike was in Houston, they took Brady Aiken 1-1, which is totally different. But you will get. So I try to avoid that. Like, I will, just for the sake of writing, if, like, for instance, I can't think of a good example. Like, let's say Grand Canyon had another good player this year, and I was projecting him to Oakland. I might say, hey, Oakland's taking Grand Canyon. This would be the second straight Grand Canyon first rounder. But I don't try to make a projection based on, oh, they've done this in the past, so they'll do it again. Because if you drafted the same type of player every year in the first round, that wouldn't be a very good strategy either, unless you're just, unless your strategy is best player available. If you're just saying, like, oh, we're going to take, I think back to the Cubs. When the Cubs were rolling, everybody at one point was like, oh, the Cubs are so smart, they're taking the best college hitter no matter what. Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Ian Happ. It's a great strategy. Well, and yeah, those guys were good big leaguers. But at the same time, you look back, Now, I'm not saying they should have taken pitchers. The Cubs didn't have any success drafting pitchers in those years, which is why they weren't able to stack pennants and World Series championships on top of 2016.